Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. On Tuesday morning, the Arlington County District Court in Virginia was buzzing with feverish activity. The main lobby echoed with a mix of hurried footsteps, hushed conversations, and the nervous rustling of files as busy paralegals clutched their chests. The air was thick with the subtle scent of yellowed paper, lukewarm coffee, and pent-up impatience. In courtroom 4B, the benches were already packed. Tense-faced lawyers adjusted their ties. Anxious defendants, often alone, bit their nails or scanned the room, searching for a reassuring sign. The pale fluorescent lights accentuated the coldness of the place: pale concrete walls, hardwood benches, crackling microphones, and a wall clock that seemed to judge every second. The presidency was held Judge Walter Hornsby, a well-known figure in the local bar. The 63-year-old, rigidly posed magistrate wore his black robe the way a king wears his cape, with a certain solemnity, almost theatrical. But behind this judicial facade hid a man feared, dreaded, and hated by some. A former state attorney general, he had risen through the ranks not out of compassion, but out of zeal. He liked to make his superiority, his power, felt. His ironic, often scathing remarks fell like whiplashes on the most vulnerable litigants, especially those from minorities. He had already been heard to say, in an empty room, what this court lacks is a lie detector, and a bad manners detector. When he entered that morning, an automatic silence fell. He tapped his microphone in annoyance. Let the first matter stand. No time to waste today. The clerk, a pale young woman with thick glasses, leafed through the documents in front of her. Case number 42C-887. Ms. Marsha Louise Bennett vs. Clarendon Police Department. The black woman in her 40s rose with a quiet, almost solemn grace from the plaintiff's bench. Her impeccably tailored navy suit hugged her curves with understated elegance, exuding both professionalism and confidence. Her hair, carefully tied into a simple but neat bun, revealed a face marked by experience, determination, and a dignity intact despite her trials. Marsha Bennett walked slowly, deliberately, toward the witness stand. Each step seemed measured, as if she wanted to impose her calm and authority in this room where minorities are too often silenced. Her eyes, wide and unflinching, stared at Judge Hornsby with a quiet intensity, defying the implicit arrogance of the man who would question her. The judge, sitting on his dais, looked up at her. His gaze slid slowly from head to toe, condescendingly assessing this woman who dared to appear before him. A small smile appeared on his lips, tinged with barely concealed contempt. Ms. Bennett, you are here because you were pulled over during a traffic stop, and apparently refused to comply with a police officer? Hornsby's voice was dry, sharp, almost defiant. He seemed to take a certain pleasure in making this accusation, as if he already wanted to reduce her to just one culprit among many others. Marsha, unperturbed, replied calmly, her voice clear. No, Your Honor. I presented my federal identification at the first request. I simply asked to call my supervisor to confirm my identity and the nature of my mission. A mocking laugh escaped the judge. He tilted his head to the side, feigning surprise, and said sarcastically, Your federal ID? Let me guess, you work at the post office, right? The laughter grew louder, more muted, coming from the few spectators seated at the back of the room, those who shared the magistrate's condescending attitude. They murmured among themselves, visibly amused by what they considered a form of misplaced pretension. But Marsha didn't move an eyelash. She didn't look away, didn't scowl, didn't show any signs of weakness. No, sir. I don't work at the post office. His voice was firm, calm, without anger or reproach, but each word carried the weight of a truth that we refused to see. Judge Hornsby, piqued, changed his approach, slipping into a more acerbic form of sarcasm. Maybe you're a lawyer, then? Or one of those activists always ready to make waves. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy. Even the usually impassive clerk looked down in embarrassment. She could sense the rising tension, the invisible line between authority and abuse about to be crossed. Marsha's lawyer, Master Derek Malone, a man of about 40 with a lively gaze and a calm voice, stood up slowly but firmly. "Your Honor, I ask you to remain within the bounds of respect and decency toward my client. These innuendos are inappropriate and have no place in this courtroom." Hornsby, visibly annoyed by this interjection, raised his hand as if to cut him short. "I'm holding this hearing, Mr. Malone. Not you." His tone was firm, almost threatening, implying that any protest would be futile. But Marcia wasn't intimidated. She had waited for this moment, prepared for it. She knew her battle wouldn't be easy, but she wouldn't back down. Because this trial wasn't just for her, but for all those the system shamelessly trampled underfoot. Until then silent, Marcia remained motionless for a few moments, letting the weight of her words hang in the heavy air of the room. Then, with an almost ceremonial slowness, she reached into her black leather handbag, removed an equally simple and elegant wallet, and approached the bar with a gravity that instantly captured everyone's attention. The whispers stopped immediately. All eyes were on her. Marcia carefully opened the wallet, revealing an official badge, gleaming in the dim courtroom lights. "Here is my badge, Your Honor." Judge Walter Hornsby frowned, squinting to decipher what was written on the card. His posture straightened, his fingers clenching the desk. He leaned forward, straining to get a better look, his expression changing from surprise to disbelief. He suddenly paled, his mocking smile gone, replaced by visible confusion. The card, in gold letters and official script, read: United States Secret Service. Special Agent, Marcia L. Bennett. Clearance Level 5. Presidential Security and Special Financial Operations. A deathly silence fell over the room, heavier than any condemnation. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, each person present aware that they were witnessing an exceptional, almost historic moment. Marcia, in a calm but firm voice, continued. On March 12, I was arrested without explanation by Sergeant Harold Lewis. I was violently pushed to the ground, handcuffed, and deprived of my means of communication for nearly 90 minutes, despite having immediately presented this badge. She paused, letting the words resonate. I was on federal business, assigned to presidential security, on official business that day. This arrest was not only illegal, it was deeply humiliating. The judge shrank back slightly in his seat, as if struck by an invisible blow. His face paled further, betraying a mixture of embarrassment and disbelief. The room froze, everyone hanging on his every word. And you're saying that this officer ignored your card? He whispered, his voice hoarse, almost strangled. Not only did he ignore my identity, but he tried to confiscate my cell phone, and he charged me with federal identity theft, Marcia replied, her eyes shining with suppressed sadness. All this simply because I am a black woman, sitting in a black company car, wearing professional attire. The weight of his words fell like an indisputable truth on the assembly. Some lowered their eyes, others tensed. The judge's imperturbable facade seemed to crack under the shock. This was no longer a case of minor misdemeanor or resistance to authority. It was a direct indictment, a stark illumination of systemic racism and injustice that permeated the very workings of the justice system. No sooner had Marcia presented her official badge than Judge Hornsby, visibly disconcerted, called an immediate recess. He slammed his gavel nervously, signaling a premature end to the hearing. The room, still in shock, slowly emptied, the murmurs growing louder in the courtroom. But what could have been a simple judicial incident quickly turned into a national scandal. As soon as the video of the hearing was posted online, captured by the court's official cameras, it made the rounds on social media in record time. Millions of internet users watched the sequence, in which the judge, initially mocking, was thrown into disarray by the undeniable proof of Marcia Bennett's legitimacy. Just days after the incident, major American media outlets picked up the story on their front pages. CNN, NBC, MSNBC, and even the prestigious Washington Post published articles that were both factual and engaging, highlighting the double injustice suffered by Marcia, that of an arbitrary and humiliating arrest of a federal agent, and that of the contempt displayed by a representative of justice. The title of some articles went viral around the country. Secret Service agent humiliated in court, when prejudice overwhelms evidence. The outcry was immediate. In Arlington, a city known for its diversity, peaceful demonstrations were organized in support of Marcia. Hundreds of people from all backgrounds took to the streets, holding signs bearing poignant messages. She was protecting the country, they denied her humanity. Justice for Marcia, justice for all. Social media became a forum for heated debate about systemic racism, institutional discrimination, and the need for reform in law enforcement and the judiciary. On the authorities' side, the consequences were swift. Sergeant Harold Lewis, the officer who had handcuffed Marcia without justification, was suspended the day after the video was released. An internal investigation revealed several similar complaints against him for abusive behavior and discrimination, until his official dismissal was announced a few weeks later. Judge Walter Hornsby, meanwhile, was placed on administrative leave while a Judicial Ethics Commission reviewed his conduct. Complaints of inappropriate conduct, abuse of power, and lack of impartiality mounted. Under public and media pressure, he was summoned to appear before a disciplinary hearing. The proceedings would drag on for several months, but his authority and reputation were already irreparably tarnished. A few weeks after the case that rocked the Arlington courthouse, Marcia Bennett agreed to speak publicly, but only once. This exclusive interview was conducted for the investigative show 60 Minutes, recognized for her incisive portraits and in-depth investigations. Under the spotlight, facing the iconic journalist, Marcia appeared calm, dignified, and resolute. Her face was marked by fatigue, certainly, but also by unwavering determination. "I never experienced this as an exception," she began, her voice measured but vibrant with emotion. "What I went through, millions of black women in the United States go through every day. Whether they are lawyers, teachers, police officers, nurses. They are judged not for who they are or what they do, but for the color of their skin." Marcia paused briefly, her gaze wandering into space for a moment, as if to invite everyone to consider the significance of her words. "The only difference in my case is that I had a card, an official federal badge that forced the recognition of my legitimacy. But what can we do for all those who have only their truth, their dignity? For those who, every day, suffer systemic racism without being able to brandish a badge or written proof?" The silence in the studio was palpable. The reporter, respectful, let her continue. "Respect should never depend on a badge," she concludes forcefully, "it should be unconditional. And this fight doesn't stop with me. It's a collective struggle for recognition, justice, and equality." This interview caused a sensation. It gave a strong and clear voice to a reality that is too often silenced or minimized. It inspired thousands of viewers to question their own prejudices and demand change. Despite the ordeal, Marcia Bennett continued her career with the United States Secret Service with renewed commitment. Recognized for her professionalism, courage, and integrity, she was promoted a year later to the position of Deputy Director of Executive Security. This appointment made her the first black woman to achieve this prestigious rank, a powerful symbol for all women and minorities aspiring to break glass ceilings. As for Judge Walter Hornsby, the media and institutional storm got the better of him. Placed under disciplinary investigation, he preferred to take early retirement, away from the spotlight and in relative silence. His years in court were re-examined in light of this affair, raising crucial questions about the impartiality and accountability of judges. But what will forever be remembered is not the fall of a man or the rise of a woman, but the moment when power was called to order, not by force, but by truth. That day, in courtroom 4B of the Arlington courthouse, a black woman stood up to a too often blind system and demanded justice. An exemplary fight, a symbolic victory, and a vibrant call for justice to finally be a right for all.